Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Open Money on Blog Talk Radio. I'm Ernie Jacob and I'm with Michael Linton in a very cold Tuesday morning in the Comox Valley. The winter is bitter and it's hanging on, and one of the issues that we're going to be talking about today is what open money community currencies let systems can do about issues like homelessness and hunger and poverty. So, Michael, over to you. How are you doing?
Well, I'm hanging on, but I'm not bitter. And I think that's the key point here. The weather may be cold and nasty and so on, but in these times of strife, we must think of change.
We're the comfortable ones.
We
are the comfortable ones. And it behooves us to try and do something for those who aren't as comfortable.
Well, indeed, throughout the planet, there's an awful lot of need, and there's a considerable amount of mid-ground either complacency or ineffectiveness. We can't engage with how do we make a difference around here. With the increasing tightening of the economy, the breakdown of this, that, and the other, followed by the job losses, turn down in trade, collapse of real estate markets, and so on and so forth. So everybody's tightening, and the needs are rising. Homeless is getting to be a growing problem. It's been a growing problem for years, and increasingly so.
Yeah, I remember when there weren't such things as food banks.
Yeah. Temporary. There were going to be temporary food banks for maybe a year. And that was at least 30 years ago. Well, it's getting worse. It's not getting better. And the thing that's generally missing is the capacity of the people as a whole to support the nature of our commons through means that are not, as they were historically, supported particularly by church organizations, by the village mentality, the village culture, the fact that we didn't travel far. Some people never moved more than a few miles from the place of birth through entire life. And so things tended to be local, tend to be integrated, not necessarily equitable at all, far from it. But a lot got picked up because people were looked after. And now with our nuclear family, our differentiated society, our just-in-time economy, our layoffs and downsizing and relocations, the identification with community is pretty much gone. So the best we seem to have are things like United Way, which is a good thing, I suppose, but my God, if that's the best we can do, it's pretty pitiful, isn't it? When you look in our community here in the Comox Valley, we're on the east coast of Vancouver Island. We're an hour or so away from the main hub of the island, Nanaimo. So we're in the residential retirement, fringe farming, small industry, and a defense base. That's our basic community, about 60,000, 70,000. Now, if you say that the average per capita income in Canada is in the region of $20,000, well, we'll probably be a little bit below that around here. We're not an industrial center. So you take the 50, 60, you take the 20,000, you're looking at an overall local domestic product, if you like, of wages earned, income from stocks, shares, pensions, insurance, products, whatever. The man in the street, the 60,000 of us in the streets of the Comox Valley, man and woman and child, about $1 billion we go through every year. About $1 billion coming and going. And probably we save a bit more some years, spend a bit more the others. But on the whole, let's say we have $1 billion economy around here. Well, how much did United Way manage in the last few years to raise in this community? Well, it wasn't that impressive. A couple of 100,000. Less than 0.1% of our domestic product was converted into this particular initiative. Now, that's not the only thing that happens in the Valley, of course. There's a tremendous amount of contribution and effort and giving and supporting through church groups, service clubs, schools, parents, just neighborliness. But in terms of organized financing of the common good, well, we're stuck with a tax base, and you know how bad that is. Lots of money going around in circles and disappearing in odd places, but not a hell of a lot of group coming together to build community. They used to say it takes a village to raise a child. They used to say a congregation to build a church, both physically and socially, culturally, spiritually. It doesn't happen. You don't wander in and say, there will be a church here, go. No, you have to get people together, and then usually at some stage there's a building party, and everybody gets together and hammers, nails, cranes, whatever. The frame goes up and you get started.
And in some communities, religious communities, Hutterites, for instance, and Mennonites still do that barn raising kind of thing, house raising, exactly. Barn raising.
Yeah, in fact, that's the most generic term, the barn raiser. It's how do we get a bunch together and do this? And it might be raising the barn, it might be cleaning up the park, it might be holding a music festival or something, a whole group get together and do it. What's this grouping function, and how do we get together to achieve something? Well, if you look
how do we build enough homes so that everybody has a safe, comfortable place to live?
Well, it is a startling reflection on the state of a community, how it treats those who are less fortunate than the successful or the survivors, the people who are falling off the edge, the mentally ill, the various disabilities, challenges, the people who need support and help. And what do we do in our society? Well, we outsource that to government, who are busy outsourcing it to the private sector, who are busy outsourcing it to somebody else. Pass the parcel, not my department, I'm not doing anything about it. And we've seen this in the Valley here over the last few years with the increasing issues of homelessness and the continuing lack of hard, on-the-ground, substantial action. Where's the money? Is it coming from the feds? Is it coming from the provincial government? Is it coming from the municipalities? Who's going to give up what? Not in my backyard.
And in fact, they're all competing. All municipalities are competing with each other for a diminishing pot.
Yeah, and the supposition that the money that we're going to do this with comes from outside, well, that's nice. Everything seems to come from outside, doesn't it? Well, how about looking at home base? How about what can we, with the slack in our society, and boy, is there slack in our society. Of the 60,000 people here, well, there's a bunch of them in full employment, a bunch of them in well-paid employment, but there's an awful lot of us who aren't fully occupied, who are misoccupied in some cases, busy selling newspapers to each other so that we can sell newspapers to each other, round and round and round. It's just one example. So the proposition we have is, what can you do to bring the billions of turnover in your economy to produce something substantial in terms of community product, community gathering, community creation, the social capital of our community? So we're going for the mill from a bill concept, from $1 billion turnover. What's necessary in your community to produce 1 million of funds raised for community projects like homelessness, like food security, or energy research, social justice, shelters for all sorts of people who need them, not just the fundamentally homeless, but transition processes. We need a different housing stock. We need a different perspective on how we look after ourselves in our own community. So we're going for the million from a billion concept, and we're going to be using the standard community Wacom idea. The businesses create a pool of recirculating community currency through donation to local good works, ventures, charities, causes. And not even just local, they can donate it to external, Oxfam or malaria tents for Africa. But the process by which it happens is...
It would be strategic to focus on a goal, such as homelessness. Providing with $1 million, in terms of what you're going to do with $1 million, that first million, because it actually keeps circulating. We're not just, that's the first million that's raised, and it does keep circulating, so that will build. But let's suppose we focus our attention here in this valley on what has been an intractable project or problem.
Well, entirely. I do think that a flag, a poster project, the front, the display package, homelessness is perfect, particularly in our community. I think, though, it's also useful to not identify all of the first million as the homelessness project, so much as, so let's differentiate right from the beginning. Peg it around homelessness, maybe target 500,000 or some similar number as specifically the homelessness target. But also we're looking to raise 200,000 for this, or 50,000 for that, or 3,000 for the other. Small projects, big projects. The main one, homelessness. And the target, how long does it take to get a mill into circulation in this world of community currencies? Because there's no end of applications. It's really a strategic issue, community by community, which applications are the lead, which one's the most attractive. For instance, in a major city, take Vancouver. Well, population base of Vancouver is what, about 2 million, they generally say. So it's, at least 40 times as big as the Comox Valley by that standards. So one might expect them to be a $40 billion economy in Vancouver. So
let's make it 50. I like 50 better.
All right, let's say 50 billion. If you've got an economy of 50 billion in your local domestic product, and by that I'm talking about the net flow through personal assets and earnings. How much do you earn and spend? How much comes through your world? So we're talking about people. We're not talking about just the businesses, because often money will flow into a business and straight out to another business that's another part of the world. Looks good on the books, but it's doing nothing for the quality or the quantity of our local economy at the wage level. That one we describe through personal income and expenditure. So if we're going at a bill here and say a city like Vancouver might be 50 bill, their target would be, how long does it take them to raise 50 million? Now, when you're talking 50 million, you've really got to be talking multiple projects. It would be quite obscene to put all that into one place.
Oh, I didn't mean to say that it should all go into one place. I was thinking strategically here in the valley. That it's a good focus, as you say, right? It makes a good focus so that half of your $1 million target, or in Vancouver half of your $50 million target, or your 50, is focused on a major intractable issue that a number
Absolutely.
of organizations get around, as well as but of course the choice in a community way program is the businesses choose who they donate their community currency to.
Precisely. And the danger with... No, you can't. And the danger of sort of enclosing the concept, which it could happen if people get too excited about, we're going to do this project in our community for the Save the Forest, or we're going to do it for the women's shelter or something very specific. If it becomes identified as singular to one thing, then the next stage has to break out of that mold and see the multiplicity and the diversity. So my preference is to say
better, sure, for the multiplicity to be built right in. I mean, and in fact,
yes.
It is built in Community Way. I mean, a variance of Community Way might want to do it differently, but in terms of the way we've designed it, we're talking about a multiplicity. It's open.
It's
businesses
open.
Choose. Well, businesses choose.
They do indeed. And yet there can be strong focus. And for instance, a particular service club might choose as that service club to focus on one strand or one thread of this weave. Others might open it out. If you take I'm thinking like a chamber of commerce of a town, which must be very widely spread, then that chamber of commerce might most productively look both for diversity within its own constituents. You know, we have 1,500 members in our chamber or something, and thus we might expect, say, 500 to be immediately involved, but their interests widely spread. But the chamber can also reach out to the Rotary Club. It can also reach out to the other service clubs. It can do all sorts of cross-linking rather than this is our project, it's in our space. It's important for people to understand this is about a portal to an open commons. And that requires the breadth and the variety be clearly part of the initial setup. Go in any direction. But let's look at the possibility of resolving the first step in the project of homelessness might be raise $500,000 locally, because boy, it's not happening yet. Not coming from the feds, and it's not coming from the province as fast as it needs to. So we've got to look to ourselves, and that practice of finding our own social capital, our own social effectiveness, our ability to support our own economy with our own money, that's a worthy exploration in itself. So we're going to be talking around our town, reminding people where we've been before. This comes out of LET Systems. It comes out of all the development we did in the last 27 years. It comes out of the Community Way model. It comes out of the initiatives we did in the late 90s and early 2000s. But now we're looking at it in terms of...
That's a good... Michael, just let me interrupt there momentarily, because we're about 15 minutes into the show. We have an hour if we want it. We said we were going to probably cut it off in half an hour. But if there is anybody out there listening, you can call in 646-716-9424, or pick us up afterwards by email. I'm Ernie at openmoney.org. Michael is MWL at openmoney.org. And we're all over the place as Open Money, and on Twitter and FriendFeed and Facebook. So if you want to join in the conversation about community currencies, open money systems, and LET systems, we'd be happy to talk.
Yeah, I think all over the place would be perhaps our tagline. We are a very distributed and widely focused project. Insofar as the creation of community money, open money, is a multifaceted project. And we're trying to address as many of those facets as we can, the limited resources available, on the grounds that diversity and growth and evolution, emergence, is quite unpredictable. And we need to not so much cover all the bases as feed all the bases to make sure the possibilities are there. Now, hitherto, that has meant go local and try hard, either in your own home base or recamp to a city. In our case, we've been trying in Vancouver, Victoria, and various places to raise interest. But they've been one-shot deals, one here, one here, one here. The most recent developments in the Open Money platform, however, open the significant possibility of distributed networks, that a community way project need not just be local to one city or village or town or region, but community way projects can be happening nationally and internationally, that major corporations, airlines, telecommunications, shipping, food, pharmaceuticals even, who knows. Any corporation that's doing business around the world should start looking at how it's doing that business, and if you like, the non-person that corporation is. If a non-person comes into the room, just like a person comes into the room, you want to see what they're bringing. Somebody says, we're moving into your community. What do we come for? Well, all too often the corporation has come to take. It's an entity that comes in and says, here I am, and I'm here for the money. After all, I'm a mindless, empty, unethical collection of people driven by shareholder value. I'd be wrong to do anything else except maximize my profits at the expense of anybody that I can beat in the competition. Them's the rules. Well, those are not particularly convivial rules. And the entry point for a business coming into the community of common money, of open money, of collaboration, is rather not what am I here to take, but what am I here to give? What do I bring to it? So if we're looking at how a corporation becomes real, some of you may remember from your childhood, if you're as old as I am, a story called The Velveteen Rabbit, where the toy only became real when it was dog-eared and loved very much. Well, how does a corporation become a real person? How does it begin to express the moral values and the behavior that we would hope for from our neighbor, from our friends, our neighbors, our family, from people in the world? We expect people to have some moral standards. Apparently we don't require that of corporations. It's not compatible with the capitalist single currency model. But in community commons, in the open money world, a corporation is known by its behavior, and its behavior is essentially the emergence of its character, its personality. So if you're going to be a good corporation, you start by giving. You come to a community and say, what we bring is. And the first thing that a corporation can bring to the new market of open money in the wider world is their contribution in community money, their gift. They can commit to this money rather than try and suck it. And that's a major shift in personality. So the beauty of our current situation is we can now be all over the place. To be all over the place is to make these ideas compatible and available, not just in the Western societies, the European societies, but also in Africa and India, Latin America, wherever, in China indeed. It should be perfectly feasible for people to adapt these basic ideas and turn out their own version of the mill from their bill. Can they get 1/1000th of their economy to support their community as a whole? And we want to see first a dozen, maybe 100, maybe thousands of communities around the world undertaking this challenge. We've all got billions gone by. Can we find a way to tune just a few mil into the right and effective directions? Now this has got parallels in the national governments and their commitments to foreign aid. I can't even recall the figures in Canada. I think we're supposed to be aiming something like 1.1% of GDP, and we're probably at about 0.3% of GDP is related to overseas aid. And that 3%
and that
is
aid,
tied also
that
to,
aid
yeah,
is,
right.
I mean, the aid goes to Canadian corporations to do business in these
the trade tied deals,
etc.
Well,
right? So I mean, it's not even aid. It's just.
But it is in many cases it is aid. It is gifts in grant. Products are shipped. Value is created and transferred. But But it's done in such a way that it's inside the government and financial and corporate bureaucracies, and it's pitiful, and it's self-service. We only ship the aid that feels good to us, that serves our corporate interests. So if you want a can-do nuclear reactor, boy, have we got a deal for you. We can give you aid. Well, we need to go beyond that. We need to have a much more effectively integrated world. So that's our game. Mill for bill. And we're starting locally, and we're encouraging others to start looking at this project and to start scaling their own initiatives in that perspective. It's not enough to say, oh, we've raised $50,000, da-da-da. That's terrific that you did, but it's not enough if your economy is $50 billion. 50,000 is peanuts. It's trivial. So good as it is and valuable as it is not cracking the egg. We're not getting near the omelet. So big scales, a mill for bill.
And right. And also little scales, because the Open Money platform provides a way for anybody anywhere to create their own community currencies, and invite others to get accounts. It's an account-based system on the web, and that relates to the villages in Africa or Bangladesh, anywhere in the world where there is a connection. It can be a cell phone in a village or a region connected to the internet that provides community currency services to the people in the village who want them.
Yeah, and many other tools and facilities already exist that will help us to get this show on the road when sometimes the technology may not be as broadly distributed or as compatible or as immediately available, accessible. There's nothing really wrong with paper. If you handle a paper currency effectively, or a paper carrier for a currency, then various forms of printed currency can be effective components of a community-way model. And particularly given the business interest in promotion, in exposure, in identification with their corporate social responsibility goals, to have some dollar bills floating around town, essentially checks in community currency issued by business A, business B, business C, in the denomination of maybe 50s, 20s, 10s, 5s, maybe even $1 bills. Why not? When do you last see a $1 bill this side of the line? I know it's common down south, but in Canada we don't do that stuff anymore. We do coins for ones and twos, the loonie and the toonie. We have a $5 bill. Well, there should be a $5 Joe's Grocery. It's the sort of thing that you can do with a check writing software, is you can produce a series of numbered, documented, identified, printed checks. Well, we can produce those for values created by this business through the community currency, the community way of the Comox Valley. Uniquely identified, perhaps a cryptographic signature, perhaps some sort of a thumbprint, of a water print on it that identifies the bill uniquely. It should have some security aspects, because of course as soon as you start playing with paper, you're starting to risk counterfeiting and false injection of money, people just cranking it out themselves in their photocopy or their desktop printer and then saying, here, look, here's the money. Now this will be less in small communities, but of course the bigger the community, the more problematic. And in fact, in cities, we're a bit careful about that because frankly, the city economies are going to be talking about millions and millions of dollars. And if even a fraction of that is in a paper form, there will be an increasing risk of fraudulent replications that would, of course, undercut the value of the money, perhaps quite problematically.
Well,
so in the big cities, we'd go.
The thing is that businesses, because they set the rate at which they accept the money. I mean, they're covering their normal Canadian dollar costs in any case, So the restaurant.
Well, yes, if a currency system gets flooded with false money, and then the businesses that are finding this a valuable process and continuing with it may choose to undertake to even accept this clearly fraudulent money if they do it within their profit margin and thereby don't compromise the direct cash flow of the transaction. I'll sell you the groceries for $80 in cash and $20 in this totally clearly fraudulently produced piece of nonsense because it's easier than rocking the boat and it doesn't hurt me too much. But it does mean that the businesses that are doing that are in that section of their trading, they're really just trading at discount. Their value added, their staff time is not really being respected, and they're gaining nothing that they can pass on as in their expenditures. Whereas if the money is good, they take it in that 20% above their costs, and then they can spend it for staff bonuses, for additional product, for all sorts of things.
Well, for sure. I mean, definitely you want to work at. I'm just pointing out that there are some fail-safes in the system. In any case, even if there is some fraudulent money floating around. But what that does bring up, of course, is that eventually these systems will migrate towards account-to-account kind of transactions using and chip-to-chip transactions using smart cards and cell phone.
Well, in fact, that's imperative. Sure that we're putting together these mill from bill project ideas with a view to raising millions. That's the thing that for most people will be the attraction. Most people won't be interested in this as a new currency model and this has a long-term impact on the development of our economy and culture. They'll be interested in we're raising $1 million for homelessness or for this, that, and the other. So that's their attractor, is the cash is raised, money is created, we get something done. From the point of view of the open money development world, that's a side effect, that's an attractor, that's part of the feature set. It's a benefit and it's good and we have no problems with it. In fact, it's the thing that makes the whole deal attractive to the general public and the business community. But our intent is to get a field of accounts out there, context of businesses and community groups and people who are, whether they really know it or not, already sort of attached to the virtual money network through the account base. Now, one could start one of these things without accounts, do it entirely with paper. Trouble is, you've only got the paper. And it's going to shift to get the people who are involved in passing paper around to think of it as a parallel banking system for virtual money. You'd have another step to cover. But because we're interested in the multiplicity of the account base and the fact that once people are in one framework, those that are adventurous or interested or persuadable will be able to join into multiple currencies and diversify these actions in many, many ways. That's our key. We're opening doors to multiple possibilities, and we cannot do that by creating a singular space. We have to have the account base. So any form of paper that is used in support of this, and I'm pretty much in favor of a well-organized merchant identification issue, the printed paper of your community. I think it has to be a small scale and it has to be looked upon as something which will eventually just largely disappear as an art object in the space. People will keep these bills as recognized artifacts and gradually they will get retired from service and disappear and will be supplanted or replaced by smart cards, by online phone wallets, by near-field communications transactions, like when you go past the bus turnstile. You just wave your card and it automatically takes the $2 or $3 off it or whatever. These are the technologies that we've got to move to if we're going to continually support diversity. And
well, I would suggest that these are technologies that we could jump to. For instance, a group of smart business people in Regina or Ottawa or St. John's could immediately get smart card equipment and smart cards, and with maybe an investment of $10,000 to $20,000 of their own dollars.
That's very important to point out that this is not a question of $1 million upfront investment to distribute a platform that covers your area, and then one by one the businesses and the people join in as they find it attractive. Those are expensive initiatives. Ours is so much simpler. The only people who need the equipment are the people who've already bought into the concept. And that means that we can specifically apply the hardware to the places where it's needed, the restaurant, the retail store. And therefore the costs ramp up from a very, very small wedge entry point, maybe $5,000, $10,000 in some cases would be enough to get yourself going on the hardware. And if it expands later to $1 million enterprise, well, it does so because you've turned over that much transactions and the clear need there and the resources to provide it.
Yeah, what we're talking about here is $1 million, for instance, in this valley, when the target is met of raising $1 million new community dollars, business-backed dollars. That's $1 million of new money that continues to circulate within the community. Now, I would really love to hear from some, an economist that's getting his FUD at a university somewhere, look at what is the multiplier effect of such a currency compared to the so-called multiplier effect of normal conventional money, hard money.
Mm-hmm. The personal multiplier effect.
To me, it's astonishing that it hasn't been an economist that has addressed that very issue. Because they talk about the multiplier effect of normal money, and they talk about, it goes around 1.5 times, 1.6 times, 2 times,
7 times.
And then it's gone. How many?
Yeah. Well, often 7 times, and on a national economy scale, this is possibly true. Somebody creates a mortgage in Manchester, and thereby there's cash created for the bank accounts, and those cash is spent and moved around. And it may go through 7 or 8 transactions before it returns to a bank as settlement on a loan account, whereupon the money is basically absorbed back into the non-space. So you can get multiplier effects on the gross scale for a national economy of 5, 6, 10 points. Particularly industries create more, others create less. But from the individual point of view, the multiplier effect is a totally different thing. The individual point is, that's all very well for our national economy. Everything I spend increases other people's livelihoods a bit. What does it do for mine? I spend some money. Do I get richer? Don't think that's how it happens. So, what is the effect upon me, my multiplier effect? And in conventional money, the answer is always 0. There is no multiplier effect. There is no feedback of any significance that says the money you spend will produce increased demand for your services, financial demand. But with closed-loop community currencies, mutual credit, community way, organizations like that, we've got a recirculating money, and the multiplier effect is a curious function. I don't think it can ever be a discrete, identifiable, oh, we have a multiplier of 4 or 44. It'll be closer to 44 than it is to 4. But what will it be when it's essentially an unlimited, unconstrained, perpetually available feedback reciprocity system? Whatever you spend in closed-loop currencies shows up as demand. And that demand is available for you to tap into in your community money. So multiplier becomes somewhere between a hell of a lot and infinity. And really loses its relevance as a factor. Although it does point very carefully, very accurately to the inadequacy of conventional money as a multiplier generator. It doesn't. I wish a lot of more people knew that. It's a hardly understood idea.
Well, that's what we're trying to do with this show, which happens to be Open Money on Blog Talk Radio. And I'm Ernie Jacob. The other guy with the funny accent is Michael Linton. And people can call in. It's we're live for another 15 minutes or 18 minutes if we want to stay with it. In the States, people can call in toll-free 646-716-9424 or pick up the chat on Blog Talk and drop us a note, or find us out there at lets.net. Lets.net is a good place to go because it also has all the archived legacy materials from the original Let System site, which actually has some brilliant stuff on it, as well as a number of other sites like openmoney.org and openmoneyeditme.com. Anyway, all of that stuff is at lets.net. And I'm Ernie at openmoney.org. Michael is MWL at openmoney.org. And yeah, we wish more people would examine community currencies from the point of view of their probable significance, rather than from the historical trivial kinds of projects and attempts, or that's not so much trivial as singular and difficult, although some are indeed, because they're just they tend to be discount coupons.
Yeah, I think the point is the old "what's in it for me" issue. The history of community currencies has not been at all encouraging for people who are looking for a perpetual free ride or a simple it'll do it without our efforts initiative. No, you've got to take some effort. You've got to know what you're doing. You've got to be intelligent about it. And unfortunately, the history over the last 20 years has been rather inadequate. I won't go into the details of why that is, except for us to say it's a singular issue. It's the attempt to get it right. And we'll do one.
Well, we have
perfect
talked about it, and besides, I mean, it's all. I mean, we've got a number of podcasts where we, talk about things like Toronto dollars and Berkshires and dollars and Ithaca hours.
We've got to start looking at
variations on the theme of centrally managed fiat-like currencies.
So we've got to shift people towards the projection of possibility. And I know that when somebody looks at our sites, they're going to say, oh, here, these guys are out of date, they're amateur, they're not doing enough work to keep us up to speed. This is really low-quality stuff. Well, it is, in terms of presentation and style. We are definitely in the amateur league. Amateur being we do it for love. Professional, you do it for money. We are happy to do it for money if it's
like
money
to
runs.
do it for money, but
yeah, I would like to have others involved. But the way we need to look at
amateur.
So we need to invite people to look at their entry to exploring this in terms of what's in it for them. Yes, it's a difficult exploration in that it's not all cut and dried and shrink wrapped for you. The sites are not good. You've got to do your research. But if you thought of it as a treasure hunt, suppose this was an online game. Join this game, pick up the clues, research with others, do your social networking, find your way to the pot of virtual gold at the end of the pot of the virtual rainbow or something. If one sees it as a game, an exploration, then the inadequacies of our presentation and production systems can be accepted as perhaps an unfortunate but surmountable impediment. It's just a little bit of a treasure hunt. Dig around, you'll find the stuff. And if people recognize that by digging around, they may make a huge difference to their own personal well-being, quite quickly, the effect of creating community currencies in your world could have a significant difference to your own personal income and expenditure, to the quality of the income and expenditure, to the networks that you're engaged in, to the basic security of your community, the social values, the social justice, the comfort levels of reduced crime, increased employment, greater opportunities for youth, for training, for seniors to be involved. One could go on forever about the qualitative differences. I hope we will go on forever in the qualitative differences that come from community money. But if we get that scale in people's minds, if people can say, yeah, a bit of work to do here, but think of the benefits, then it's not like you go out and you dig the ground and plant the seeds. You do that before the food is off the vine, before the harvest is in. Invest first, get later. Well, in open money, community money, it's now time for some investment. Those of you who are pricking an ear towards this, who are glancing at the issues, who are beginning to think about it, you've got to go further than thinking about it. You've got to research, you've got to study, you've got to engage, you've got to get real. Because it isn't going to get real until you do. So, gentlemen and ladies, start your engines. Get your show on the road. Let's get on with this game.
And also look at this as an invitation to join with the Open Money Development Group in creating something that certainly most people in the world could use. Could make
anybody who uses money and could use some more.
Big difference in how things evolve over the next few years. If we reach a few people, pushing this wagon up the hill.
Well, and I think we've probably pushed this wagon as far as we need to go right today. But I will just add the Cash Clash link. There is a site supported. It's hosted in the UK, initiated by Vodafone, one of the mobile carrier projects in Europe, big organization. Cash Clash with K's, K-A-S-H-K-L-A-S-H, Cash Clash. If you Google that, if you just bang it in your URL line, you're going to bring up the site. It's basically about what do we do next. And we're going to be promoting this mill from a bill concept on the Cash slide. And this will, we hope, introduce us to a wider constituency of interested parties than we've hitherto been able to raise through the existing community currency channels, which have become a little petrified, a little sclerotic. We are already an aging community of conservatives when it's a time for us to be unconservative. It's time for us to think outside boxes. So we need some new box.
Young man.
Be bold, young man.
Bold and multiply.
Yeah, be bold, old man. We're the boldy oldies.
Yeah. However, I mean, there's people can still, check in to, for instance, the Open Money, the Ning Open Money site, because there's a little bit more going on there now than has been in the past. So that's one place people could connect.
People can connect without any difficulty. Anybody who wants to find us has no difficulty doing it. So don't give us any excuse later saying you couldn't find us. You know where we are. We're all over the place. Ernie and Michael, all over the place.
Okay,
so that does it for me.
We're done for. I mean, just there's 9 minutes left, but we don't really need to fill it.
I don't think we do. So I'm going to sign off. Thank you, Ernie, for your hosting an organization, and thank you, the great free world, for your belated attention. Because I don't think anybody's listening right now, but I assume at some stage people are listening to this podcast. And maybe
I think there are parts of this that I'm going to want to transcribe. So, and there are transcriptions up of some of the previous Blog Talk Radio shows that we've done, and they're up on lets.net. And if I get some time today, I'll try and get to doing a bit of transcription, which is something else that people can help with too. If anybody wants to contribute in a very simple and easy way, and you can work a keyboard, then transcriptions of these talk shows would be very helpful.
Ah, yes. So many things would be helpful.
So many things would, Okay. So that's it. We're out of here. We're going to be back. I'm going to be in Vancouver for a couple of days. And and I'm going to try and I think I'll try and do an interview or two while I'm over there. So we'll see how that goes.
How it goes, so it goes.
Yeah, so it goes.
So it is gone. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Bye now.
We'll do this again sometime,
no doubt. Soon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Bye, man.
See you later. Bye.